Okay, in this video I'm going to just show some of the basics of animating in VoxEdit that I've managed to work out for myself. I'm sure there's a lot more workflow ways of working that will be quicker than what I do, but yeah, let's just see how far we can get. So the first thing is I'm going to create a new animation. What happens is when you choose new animation, it uses the current frame to create a keyframe for the new animation. So it's best if you choose an animation that you're either expecting to animate from, so idle, for example, or idle combat, such as this one, and then create new animation. It'll take this pose. So I'm going to just use a normal standing pose. I'm going to click new. I'm going to call it jump. Now there is a jump animation in here, but I'm just going to use this to create a full body motion, even if it is simple. You'll see over here in the animations that the blue animation is your default, just so you're aware that when you see the blue one, it doesn't stand out too much. Here's the animation I created. This is the jump they have. The game has. Basically, this animation will probably be played before playing some sort of fall loop, etc. But we're going to make him lift off the ground. So if for whatever reason you want to create a brand new pose, a good way of doing that is to reset the T stance. Now I don't know how to do this for the whole character in one go, but what you can do is go through the hierarchy, such as the hips, and over here you've got the transforms. Those are your movement translations, the character moving up, down, left, right. Then you got the rotations. We don't want to change the position of where the different joints are, which you can find here. We actually only want to change the rotations, so I'm just going to show you how to do that, but I do like this pose, so I will be returning to it. So what you can do is I'm going to turn this off so you can just see it happen on the character. I'm going to go through each of these body parts and click reset rotation. And as I go through each one, you'll notice that he starts to line up into a very linear looking pose. So his arms will be straight up and down, and clearly the rotation of the hands is somewhat unusual because it looks like it's in a correct rotation, but when I reset it, it rotates 90 degrees. So that's just how this was set up initially. Most likely the artist put the hand in and then rotated it, and for whatever reason, the rotations were stored here. So I can just keep going. And then from basically once you get it back to a T stance, or sorry, to a default stance with everything zeroed out, as we say, you can start creating a brand new starting pose. So let's have a look what that looks like. So effectively, this is the character fresh. So if you ever want to create a brand new hero pose or pose that you just don't want to work with the others, that's a way of doing it. Reset just the rotations. Let's undo. Okay, so we're going to use this one. Over here, you've got the timeline. Now, most of the work happens in here. This red line here tells us that the very first frame is a key. This is this key. So, first thing we do is make the character squat down. Our playback area is only this long, so we're going to make it longer. You have what's called a loop area. I'm going to assume in the game that allows the code to loop a portion of your animation. So say, for example, you've got a falling animation and then a land. You can determine the length of the fall animation. So maybe the guy is falling and swinging his arms between this point and this point, and anything after that is him landing. Just so you're aware, that's how that would probably work. I'm guessing, by the way. But yes, I've been doing game animation for quite some time, so pretty confident that's what they have here, which is a great idea. So first thing is let's have dude squat down. So we're going to make him squat. Now I'm not using IK here. Normally I would use IK, which would keep the feet on the ground, but seeing as I've not worked that out yet, I'm just going to do this in what's called forward kinematics, which basically means you're working your way through the hierarchy, as it were, in a forward manner. So basically the thigh, and then moving from the thigh down to the calf, and from the calf down to the foot. Inverse kinematics allows you to select the foot, pull it around, and then the thigh, the calf and the thigh will move with it. Very handy. So I'm just eyeballing this, by the way. Oops, wrong rotation. So by the way, the rotations are colored, RGB, red, green, and blue. Red is XYZ, so the colors match. RGB match the XYZ. So X rotation is the red, Y is the green, and blue is the Z. That's pretty standard as well in most applications. So now that I've moved in the timeline to a new key and reposed the character, I moved down the hips using translate, and I rotated the legs into position. I used no translation on legs, though you can, it is possible. For now, we're not going to do that. So now he squats down, you can see his feet move. So if ever you have this, you can just finesse your animation until you get it right. I still have a little issue with the navigation. As in I'm still doing the wrong things. So sometimes my character rotates off screen. I like the fact that when you hover over a body part and try to rotate, right mouse and rotate, it uses that as your focal point. That's great. Okay, so let's see. You'll see there's no key here, by the way, because I've selected the chest and we still haven't set a key here. Say, for example, we also go to this point and we want to key everything because we know this is going to be an important pose or a golden pose or key pose. When you select the highest point in the hierarchy, whether that's control or hips, if you choose, I think it is, selected this guy, yes, this button here sets a key on everything at the point at which your time slider is at. So everything is keyed, even though the chest hasn't moved and the arms haven't moved. As far as they're concerned, this pose is locked in, but I am going to edit them. So he's going to squat down a little bit. Maybe his head looks up because he wants to look where he's going to jump. And we'll do the rest pretty simply. The reason why we tend to key everything is because if we, for example, have a key on this arm here at frame 0 or at 0 in timeline, and we don't have another key until this point here, 1 second in, then his arm, even though we might want his arm to come out here and down here, his arm will only go down. It won't come out because we'd forgotten to put a key here, even though the rest of the body's keyed. So this is why we key everything at the super important poses. So squatting down is a super important pose for a jump, the anticipation. Let's just see, nice, simple. So let's, there's me on my navigation again. Let's just scroll between these, scrub, down he goes, and okay. So since everything's keyed, and by the way, the timeline updates based on the highest node that you've selected in your current hierarchy. So if I select the hips, everything gets shown in your timeline because it shows both the selected object and its children. If I select the upper arm, it shows the upper arm and its children, which are the forearm and the hand. The head, in this case, has no children, and so on and so forth. The thigh will show you the thigh, the leg, and the foot. All right, let's move a few frames further and we'll make him stretch. Now, what we could do here is maybe we want to use this pose because he's pretty upright. We can make this more of a jumping stretch. So he squats down and we go to here. So what we're going to do is go to hip. Now, I'm not sure if I can do this with all the keys. Let's see. It seems maybe not. So I don't know if you can copy a full pose, but I'll try it with the controller first. If you right click, you have this contextual menu. You've got copy, which will copy the current key for the current object, paste, which will paste it to whatever point in the timeline you are hovering over. Paste flipped, which I'm assuming is mirrored, and I'm going to assume it's mirrored across the x-axis. I really don't know though. I haven't tried it. Fill in between, again, haven't used it. Send to all. I think that sends to all your animations. So say you have a default idle pose, I can imagine that being useful. And then you've got the actual interpolation. This is a bit more advanced. What this does is it says between the first pose and the next pose, so this one and this one, the keys that were the movement that we see in between will be interpolated, basically calculated differently. And that depends on which of these you choose. If you want things to move out of a movement slowly and into the next one slowly, so basically the arm moves slowly up and then starts to speed up and then reaches the high point slowly again, then you would use this S shape here. If you want things to move more mechanically, in other words, at a pace that is exact between every interpolation, basically every frame, you would use a straight line. Then if, for example, it moves 1 unit between each of these frames, that will give you a more robotic, more static motion. So I tend to use, of course, one of the smoother ones, but that is a bit more advanced, so don't be afraid to try those. So what I did want to do though was copy, and I'm not sure how much this one will copy, but I'm going to right click here and choose paste. And yes, it only does it for the controller, so that's not much of a win. Let's see, can we cheat this somehow? I would like to be able to select the top key and shift select. Okay, so I can do that. Pity I have to select individually, because if I make one misclick, I will deselect all of these and that would suck. So let's see if this works. Right click, copy, go to this frame, right click, paste. And yes, thankfully it has copied the key from all of these individual parts onto here. Of course, it would be great to have a single button to copy all selected objects, for example, well, okay, not like that. All right, so now we have our character squat down and then come up. So we're going to now put him into a jumping pose. So move key, put this up. I keep wanting to use hotkeys for these manipulators. So we're just going to have him burst off the ground. These are what's called key poses. They're just the most important. What we would do is later have what's called breakdown poses. Breakdown poses are, for example, as he's halfway pushing off the ground, of course, his feet will still be on the ground. But in this version that I am doing now, let's see, just rotate down his foot like he's lifted off the ground. As I scrub, you'll notice his feet just sort of blend. But of course, at this point, his feet would probably still be flat on the ground. So that would be a breakdown pose. So up he comes, and we'll swing the arms up. Again, the red axis is our x-axis, which in this case is our swinging forward and back. I do apologize if my editing of the my navigating of the viewport is annoying. I've only been using this a few days, so I'm hoping that I will become far more fluid in my choices of how to make things move. Now, I'm making quite a big move here, which can sometimes cause a problem. It's normally called gimbal locking, where the animation doesn't quite know which is the shortest route to interpolate or to blend. So let's just see what happens when I scrub. Does the arm just swing up? It does. Awesome. Sometimes what can happen is if you swing the arms up high enough, for example, the shortest route is actually for the arms to go backwards behind the body. In that case, you would just put another key here with the arms midway forward. Then what will happen is the arms will swing midway forward and then all the way up, because that is the shortest route. So just be aware of that. They do have something in here. I notice that when you right click on the middle bar, it says long way rotation and it's ticked on. I think that basically will solve that whenever it happens. When, for example, something rotates in the way you don't expect it to. All right, so we have the guy lifting, nice and simple. Up he goes. Let's just give him some stretch. And if you're wanting to be a bit more fun about it, you can add a little bit of translation to, where's his mid-torso? Okay, his mid-torso is his hips. I thought he had yeah, he's got a belly. So stretch that up. Don't want too much, don't want any space there. And we can move up the shoulders. So let's see. Now they call this global and local. In most normal softwares, what that means is global means this manipulator, which as you can see is angled in such a way that it aligns with the rotated object. Global would normally mean that this returns to the world orientation, which would mean the green axis is vertical, like perfectly vertical right now, and I could just move this arm up and down. In VoxEdit, what global and local mean is global will take the children with it, like so. So in other words, the forearm and the hand. And if I go to local, sorry about this, if I go to local, it will animate the parent without affecting the children. And we don't want that. But anyway, they've named these unusually for software, for this kind of software. Okay, so let's translate up the other arm just so we get a nice, I'll move it forward a little bit. As I say, apologies for kind of being clunky. So now we have one key, two keys, and we would have a sort of floating pose at the top here. And let's just very quickly, I wonder if I can select two objects and rotate. I cannot. Okay, that would be nice because then I could rotate up both legs. There's a few things here I really hope they have a chance to improve on, but I'm still very impressed with the amount of control we have with our animation in this. I have managed to break it. Not ideal. But yeah, hopefully over time it will become more solid and robust. To the best of my knowledge, the last time the software was edited was in February of this year, which I'm a little surprised by. But I could be wrong. It's just that's what I saw in the change logs. So I can imagine, or I'm hopeful that the next edit is super cool. So now he's getting to the top of the jump where he is sort of floating. He's coming to a stop. So up I go, wee, and he'll probably go higher. And no, I don't say wee as I jump. I don't jump. All right, so here's something to notice, that there is no key here on this object, which is the belly. Now, what can happen here, and to some other objects, if you see below, the left hand hasn't got a key. If I was to create a new key here for any of these objects, like the belly, for example, so I'll move it up. So you've already seen that back here, the belly was in place, right? But because I've moved forward and added an extra key, this here has now become interpolation. In other words, it's moving between, the belly's moving between this key and this key. So if I go back, we sort of expect the belly to be in place because we saw it a moment ago in that place, in that position. But because we didn't set a key, it is now treated as an in-between keyframe, which is basically between two keyframes. So just be aware of that, it's best to key everything for these important poses. So I'll just undo that key. So I want everything here locked. And if you remember how we did that before, we just click this little diamond icon and that keys everything on that frame, basically locks everything in place. Just so you're aware that when you have this slightly darker red area, it means this key and this key are the same. And if you want to select and edit keys, you have to select a little bar. This is the actual keyframe. This space in between is the interpolation, the in-betweens. When you see a lighter red box with a square in it, that means there is a difference between this key and this key. Basically, it will interpolate, it will animate. So up he goes. His hand sort of looks like it's sticking in midair. So I can solve that by just editing the animation a little. Hover over my icons correctly. And okay. Up he comes, and then we can make him land. And before you land, you tend to stretch. So we're going to do the same thing again. As before, we're going to select the hips, which gives us access to all the keys. And of course, this is the not very fun bit, because if I misclick even once, I have to go back to the beginning, which I do a lot. But for this video, I will do my best to be patient and select everything. Now we're going to right click and copy. And I see here that I haven't keyed these objects, the left foot and the right foot. So I'm just going to hit the diamond button again. Now that everything's keyed. This is still copied to the clipboard, so I didn't lose anything by doing that. So let's say he comes to here and he starts to fall. So I'm going to right click in the timeline space. I'm going to hit paste. Oh, and I broke it. So clearly it did not like that. Oh, it's because I did not do it from the top. So most likely what it did is it took the hip rotations and translations and started applying them from the thigh. So that's why everything looks weird. What's interesting about that, what that tells me is that if I like the movement of a certain body part, and as long as the orientation isn't too offset, too different, I could probably copy an animation from a forearm from an upper arm onto a forearm, which might be useful. So we're going to go back to the hips. We're going to right click here at where the hips are, hit paste, and yes, we get the result we were expecting. So make sure you paste back on to the object that you copied from if you want that to happen. So I'm just going to slightly tweak this pose. I would very much like it if I could just select inside this gizmo, this circle, and just start free form rotating. But unfortunately, you have to edit each rotation axis individually. But normally I could just click in here and the arm would start swinging around in other software. So that would be nice for the future, but I'll survive. We will all survive. Okay, so up it goes. Let's have a look at this from a distance. Down, up. Don't like the sticking arms, but that's something I would finesse later. Okay, I'm going to be a typical OCD animator and want to fix it now. I just want a bit more movement in those arms so they don't stick in midair. So arms come up. So what I would have is I would have a breakdown, by the way, here. So what that would mean is between all these keys, a breakdown I would only put on these arms, not on the rest of the body, because for example, I might like how the rest of the body moves, but I think to myself, I want the motion of the arms to be a bit more circular in motion. It's very stiff. So actually this is a good opportunity for us to select a key, right click, and try and use a different interpolation. I am going to use this one, which let's say it speeds up in between. Is that what I want? This one here will hold a pose until the next pose, and then it'll snap to the next pose. It's kind of fun if you want robotic animation, like super robotic animation, staccato type motion. So I'm just going to choose this S-shape one to slow it out. It's actually not the right one to choose, but I just want to see if I get a smoother motion. Okay, so I did it for these 3 frames. So yeah, okay, it's ugly as hell. I cannot blame the tool. This is all down to me. I should be picking better poses. Okay, so anyway, that's how you can change interpolation. And you will notice it on some motions, like, for example, if your character is idling and he's just sort of swaying side to side or up and down, definitely use one of these, probably this one, if he's going from left to right. Because what will happen is with the default, the character will go from left to right, and the moment it hits the right-hand side, it will instantly move back to the left. If it's moving from left to right and you use this one, as soon as it gets to one side, say the right, it slows in, and then if you use this again for the next key, it'll slow out. So you don't get a bounce, you get a sort of more natural wave motion, which is what humans tend to do naturally. We don't move around like robots. Okay, so let's now we're going to reuse this as the landing pose, this anticipation. So to delete keys, you can just select them as I'm doing. When they become white and hit the delete button, they will just go away. That's kind of handy if you want to edit animation that already comes with the template. So I'm going to make him land pretty quickly afterwards. So again, I make sure I'm up at the hips. I need to right click in line with the hips, hit paste. And by the way, it pastes not where the slider is, although I use it to roughly guess where I want the frame to be, but actually where you right click. So if I right click here and hit paste, you notice it puts the key here, not where the keyframe thingy is. Oh my God, I can't even think of the word. All right, now let's return him back to an idle pose. These are the core elements necessary to animate, being able to create a key. And we create a key just by moving something. Automatically, the animator is set to create keys. So anytime you move anything from the skeleton, you will get a key. Then you need to know how to edit keys. So we've learned how to paste keys. You know how to delete keys. You can also slide keys. Let's do that in a moment. You can retime them. So let's copy this one. Again, return to hips. Find where we think he should settle, probably to here. paste. And with all these selected, actually, I'm going to see if I can use that to my advantage and right click and choose to slow into the end pose. I wonder if that will have happened for all of the selected keys. I'm checking by right clicking on a few. Cool. Now, say for example, you want things to happen a little bit out of sync. So maybe the chest to rotate down a little later than the hips. We can select the chest here and move it 2 frames. And now what'll happen is, it doesn't matter that they're not all aligned. It just means that the chest is still animating down into its lowest position 2 frames later. By the way, I'm talking in frames, but it looks like how this tool works. It works in tenths of a second, I guess, or I think there's maybe 20 spaces or so between each second. So, or maybe it's 24 even, which would make sense, because animation tends to play 30 frames a second or 24. Okay, and we can do the same with the head. Let's make the head happen even later than the chest. So the head should drop. Let's drop it here. And so the head will land. Actually, I think I wanted to, I'm going to put a breakdown in on the head. I want it to still be hanging back because yeah, it's sort of not caught up yet. And then it falls down. So let's get our nice smooth interpolation on these keys. You can right click in the center, by the way, and choose your interpolation. I'm not quite sure what the difference is between selecting the center. I guess it means whatever edit you do will affect both keys. One other thing you can do is, let's see if this is correct. If I select multiple keys like so, there's these outer bands. And if I select one of those and drag, I can scale my animation. In other words, you'll see the middle keyframe is sort of moving halfway between the selection of 3. So you can scale all your animation this way. As I said, it would be lovely to know how to select a root, for example, and have it select keys for all the children too, but I don't know if that's available. But here you go, just so you can see scaling of keys. So now the keys are just moved relative to each other. Okay, and let's just test this. Okay. So as you can see, this is what I mean by the animation being very sort of robotic and staccato, because it's moving between these keys very at a very direct or simple rate. The in-betweens are just moving straight down, then straight up, not slowing down into the lowest pose. Let's see if actually, will it let me, just wanted to see if I could possibly cheat it. I do wonder maybe if selecting the middle section, right-clicking the middle section and changing that stuff affects its children. Who knows, but let's choose this guy. I'll test that theory. Here's the thigh. And let's see. The thigh shows the upper leg, sorry, the lower leg and the foot. And let's see, currently, let's go with this guy. So what this will do is it'll hold the leg until it gets to the end and it'll pop it. So if I check, oh, it's not saving it. Maybe I have to do it here. So maybe all the work I was doing before had no effect, because now it seems to save. So I'm just going to test it these out here. Okay, so I was hoping that selecting one of these would affect all the children, but no. Okay, it makes sense because there's no way the program knows if you're going to have all of the keys on the same positions. So we're just going to go through this. I would love to be able to just select the marquee over all the keys. Okay, I'm giving you my wish list now. Here we go. Okay, there's no need to put an interpolation there because as the dark color means there's no movement. So it's a very slow process. It'd be there's probably a way of making this your default interpolation. Okay, that one's already done. Oh yes, it was the thigh and the feet. All right. He sort of sticks. So I play with the timing here. A lot of things to play with, but that's how you get your basic motion in. I would also do things like, for example, say you really like a key. So say, for example, we like this one here. He's sort of falling, right? But we want him to to hang in this between this and the previous pose a little longer, what we can do is with the hip selected, choose the diamond, it'll key everything. And now what we can do is select all of these keys all the way down and move them out a little bit so it takes him a little longer to start falling. So he's kind of hit the apex of his jump and he's sort of hung there for a little bit too long. Well, not too long, but like a basketball player who seems to float in the air. So I definitely need him to lift quicker. So I would pull this keyframe back. And as I say, it would be super cool if I could, oh, all right, well, there you go. I just learned something. After all this, it looks like if I hold Control, I haven't sure if this works yet, and drag all the way down, it selects everything within the marquee. Oh my God, I'm now a little bit more in love with this program. So Control and drag a box, starting at the hips and all the way down to the foot. I can make large edits in much quicker amount of time. So let's see, he should fall and hit the ground pretty hard. And to make him hit the ground pretty hard, I need less frames between the falling and the landing. Boom. Okay, let's see. A little too hard. So let's just undo that. Okay, we're getting there. So let me see, last thing to do. I wonder if this will work. If I can just Control, click, and drag straight down. Okay, oh, it's selected it and everything after. That's not what I wanted. What if I Control, click just this one? All right, it's a pity. Okay, but I can build on my selection. So let's pull this back. So now he goes into the top pose a little quicker. Okay, so there's room for improvement, definitely at the top where there's a weird snap happening in the hands. But I hope this is enough. It's a bit long, so apologies for the length of the video, but I do hope there was enough in here to help you.